Acknowledge me.
Leveled by Marvin Constant, the redshirt freshman out of Tuscaloosa. Oh, they go by now. Let him know he don't want to stop. 65 yards, and the ball was brought away from the line of scrimmage. Gerald Dixon.
Hey, you forgot to see my book. And you proper.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your sets or your eyes. We are actually live. The Bama Standard is giving a sneak peek of the game next week versus the Georgia Bulldogs. Sorry to interrupt your college football Saturday. I promise we're going to keep it very short and very sweet. But we felt like we had to say a couple things to get you ready for this all-important matchup next week when the Bulldogs head to Tuscaloosa. With me today is the all-star crew, the sneak peek all-star crew, and that's Daniel Petty from the opening kick. And then we got Stephen Smith from the Bama Standard, who's also the senior analyst of Touchdown Alabama magazine. And for us, gentlemen, welcome in. Thank you for hopping on last minute for a quickie just to get the Alabama fans entertained and thinking about them Bulldogs.
Well, I'll say this. I'll take the blame in having this because it was my idea, me calling Justin, trying to put this all together. So not trying to take the college football fans away from today of the football action, but just wanted to give you guys even more feverish buzz of a pitch for next week's matchup. Absolutely.
So before we get started, get that like and subscribe button tapped really hard. Yeah. If you're in a live chat, then please feel free to talk to us, but chances are you'll probably see the replay. Show us love in the replay. Gentlemen, a couple of things to talk about. First and foremost, let's go to the trenches. Let's go to the Georgia side of things. Georgia is going to be without the services of their all-SEC guard, Tate Ratledge. He'll be out 6 weeks, just had tightrope surgery. Michael Morris is going to be filling in. Now, he's a guy who has experience. Kirby Smart does like what he brings to the table, and he has purposely given him those extra reps for situations just like this. If for some reason Micah can't go, he also has Dylan Fairchild to fill in the gaps. So, folks, as we look at this, what kind of advantage, if any, does that give Alabama and that defensive line who seems to be surging at the right time? LT Overton, Qua Russaw. Of course, Quay's going to be back, folks. That's right. Qua will be back. Tim Keenan III, James Smith. What kind of advantage, if any, does that give us next week with their all-SEC guard being out? Start us out, Petty, then drop down to Stephen.
Well, like you said earlier in the pre-talk, Michael Morris has been playing a lot at that other guard spot, and they've been shuffling around with Fairchild has moved. I mean, I think they're kind of moving the guards back and forth with those two. So the backup's gotten a lot of playing time. But look, let's be real. You don't want to go into the biggest game of your season or one of the biggest games shuffling offensive linemen when you've had trouble somewhat running the ball to this point. They struggled against Kentucky to get a consistent run game going. So, I'm sorry, Kentucky does have a stud on that defensive front, but Alabama's got 4 or 5. So I think it plays into Bama's favor to have Georgia walk in with the line shuffling a little bit.
No doubt. And Stephen, we're all too familiar with having some line shuffling here as of late. Kadyn Proctor was out for a few games, and what we got made us sweat a little bit. We were fearful, but as soon as Proctor's back in, everything's back to normal. We have a fantastic week blocking against Wisconsin, and we are really trending up right now with this starting 5 set. So seeing what you saw with us as far as our struggles, do you see that being a problem for Georgia, being without a guy that has got that experience and he's going to be a top 10 draft pick in this upcoming NFL draft? What advantage do you see Alabama having with him being out?
Well, guys, it is going to be an issue for Georgia without Tate Ratledge. This is a first-team All-SEC performer just a season ago, two-time national champion. He's 6'6", 310 pounds, a big-time right guard for this Bulldog offense. With him not being in the action here next week, this presents guys like Tim Keenan a big moment to eat. This presents guys like Jamarian Latham, LT Overton, Jaheim Otis, Qua Russaw as the Wolf backer, Quandarius Robinson as well. Opportunities to affect the passing game of Carson Beck in Georgia. Also, as Petty mentioned, Tate Ratledge, Georgia loved to run behind him. With him not being in play this week, as much as the backups have gotten reps, as Marvin Constant would say, your starters are your starters for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your guys for a reason. And without Tate Ratledge in there, it's going to be some difficulty running behind whomever is going to be that offensive guard on that side for Georgia. So if you're Alabama in this matchup, what a time for your LT Overtons, your Tim Keenans, your Tim Smiths, your Jaheim Otises. This is a big game for this defensive line to not just shut the door on Georgia's rushing attack, but also pin your ears back and really come after Carson Beck and rough him up in an atmosphere that it's going to be electric at Saban Field. The crowd's going to be deafening. The lights are going to be insane. Saban and his entire family going to be there pulling for Kadyn DeBoer to get a big win here against Kirby Smart. This is huge for Alabama's defensive front and Kane Womack.
Oh, without question. And as we all know, having a key piece of an offensive line can completely disrupt continuity. We saw that on full display the first couple of games, especially against USF. Now, seeing how Georgia is able to minimize that, if at all, is something we definitely will have our eye on. But right now is not the time to have key players on that front out. Now, for Alabama, that is definitely in our favor. Like we've already said, LT is already eaten, and he is trending upward, and it looks like he's on par to have an All-American type year. So moving on, we're still staying on the trenches, or in the trenches. Again, Georgia up front, just like Alabama. They're nicked up. They're banged up. And they got some guys that they are just trying rapidly to get healed and on that field next week. Warren Brinson, Mykel Williams, Jordan Hall. Now, chances are they will be full go, but the question is, to what extent will they be able to play? What percentage health-wise will they be able to provide the Bulldogs come kickoff? We're going to see. Now, again, they've had some guys playing extensive snaps from Nazir Stackhouse, Christian Miller, and others. While they have done a serviceable job, Kirby Smart would love to have a heavier rotation than what he's got. And they were able to handle their own for the most part. But when you're going against Alabama, you want your full arsenal ready to go. So, fellas, let's talk about the kind of impact that this is possibly going to have for Alabama, as Georgia may or may not be at full strength in that front seven. Start us out, Steve, and then jump to Petty.
Well, of course, the Alabama fans are going to tell you, don't give me that excuse, you're not at full strength. Of course, the Bama Nation is going to say that. But for Georgia, they're coming in with guys banged up. They're coming in with guys not healthy. Alabama is going to come in with guys that are trying to get back to full strength as well, which, Qua Russaw is going to be good to go. Malachi Moore is going to be good to go, among a couple of other guys. But I think the biggest thing here for the Crimson Tide in this matchup is this offensive line being able to handle whatever Georgia's got at them. Yes, Kirby Smart has said we would like to have more depth up front, but we know Kirby recruits on the defensive line. Georgia and Kirby Smart, they do nothing but recruit marquee athletes up front. So somebody may be hurt, yes. Somebody may be banged up, yes. But that does not mean that Georgia does not have that next athlete that they can put in there and see what that young man can produce out there on the field. So for me, the biggest thing for this offensive line for Alabama is being able to neutralize any type of rush to Jalen Milroe, but also get that run game going. I think this is going to be a game, guys, where Georgia's going to look to slow the game down. Georgia will look to have 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives. Georgia wants to slow it down. Alabama's going to want to play at a full, fast pace to get Georgia out of its element. So which team controls the pace and flow of this game within the trenches is going to be big.
So, Petty, I'm going to ask you two questions with this. One, with our offensive line being full strength, we saw what they could do last week against Wisconsin. Biggest thing was the penalties were limited. Hallelujah, only 2. no sacks from the first team offensive line. So, and again, hallelujah. So if Georgia's able to come in full strength on that front seven, what kind of challenge does that pose for Alabama's offensive line, even though they're at full strength? And then on the other side, say they're not at full strength. What do you like Alabama's chances going up against a not so healthy defensive line, presumably?
Man, I think it's going to be a bigger challenge either way. But like you said, last week was kind of a get right week against Wisconsin. You limited the penalties. You got your actual starting five that you feel like is going to be out there with Proctor coming back. But more than that, man, look, I know the outcome of the game, but I also know how that game started. That was a real road game with a real raucous environment where the offensive line, had to deal with the hearing issues and everything else. So it wasn't just that first game together. They were doing it in a place that was really loud that could have caused some false starts or some penalties, and they really negated those. So it was a good sign going into this game. But with that said, yeah, I mean, odds are better, like you said a minute ago, Stephen. Marvin says if the starters aren't there, there's a reason that there's a little bit of a drop-off. So you obviously like your chances going against some backups a little better than you do the starters. But I'll be real, Georgia's backups are better than anything we've seen to date in any team we played. So no offense to USF or Wisconsin or Western, they just don't have the guys that Georgia does, even at the third team. So again, even those backups are going to be a more formidable challenge than we've seen to this point. But you got to like your chances a little more. But I mean, I like this offensive line. This offensive line was built to be one of the best in the country going into the season, and they are at full health now. So this is a game where they need to show that where that preseason hype was coming from. And look, man, these are the games where that Crimson does stand up. So I expect them to come out and kind of play with a little bit of grit against this defensive line. So I know that really doesn't answer what do I expect against the starters versus the backups, but I expect a more difficult challenge regardless. But I expect the guys to hold the damn own, to be honest.
Without a doubt. Now, shifting back to Alabama's defense, we're talking about challenges. We're going to need to challenge Georgia up front with that defensive line, like we've already talked about. Why? Because our secondary, very young, trying to find their way. They've had some challenges, but they have not faced a quarterback the caliber of Carson Beck quite yet. We've not had anyone who's been able to stretch the field. You put Carson Beck against us in a USF game, things get a little dicey because Carson Beck, he's hitting those guys, and we had some guys who are running free. We had some guys running free against Wisconsin. Fortunately for us, we just didn't have that guy who could deliver the mail where it was supposed to be. Different animal this week. So let's talk about the secondary being challenged for the first time this year, and will they be able to answer that challenge? Demai Jackson, we got no question he's that guy. He'll be able to hold his own, but how much will he have to make up for others' mistakes? We've already seen that Xavier Brown has enormous potential. That ceiling's very high. Same with Red Morgan, but at times they kind of appear lost when it comes to coverage. But when it comes to run support, man, you don't want to cross them. They can pop you in the mouth. So let's talk about the ability to stretch Alabama's defense in terms of Carson Beck, and how nervous are you about this, or do you have a sense of comfort? Start us out, Pay, then drop down to Stephen.
Man, I think this may be one of the key matchups of the game, because I've said it in the past weeks on the network that one of my concerns was I've seen some guys running around in the secondary. Fortunately, we haven't played a team that could really take advantage of it. I think they looked better last week, and I think the quarterback was probably more capable as the game went on of completing downfield passes. But I have seen some guys getting loose. You said with Morgan and company, kind of letting some guys get around. But on the flip side, Georgia's offense, look, man, one game you can say, yeah, remember Missouri 2 years ago where they struggled and then went on a roll. But this is two games now on prime time where the offense looked like it was kind of missing a beat. Like without Brock Bowers there as his safety blanket, or Ladd McConkey as his safety blanket, Carson really hasn't found that guy yet. Now, Look, I know that Georgia has talent. They've recruited at the highest level with Alabama and everybody else. So I'm assuming there's some guy out there, but they haven't found him yet. So I think this is a great question. I feel like there's been chances to get Alabama's secondary and people haven't been able to take advantage, but That's a question for Georgia to answer. I'm not sure they can take advantage of it because they haven't proven to be able to yet.
Stephen, now you've heard what we just talked about, what Petty just told us. Very good stuff. Georgia really hasn't had an identity outside of two players offensively for some time. That seems to be one of Kirby's hangups that he just won't move past. That aside, though, Carson Beck still is dangerous. And like I said, we're green in some areas, but thank God for Malachi Moore. He's back. We talk about guys turning it on at the right time. LT Overton up front, but Jalen Mbakwe in the secondary. So that's another plus for Alabama. So what do you see being the main the takeaway here that can give us comfort and also that can make sure that we come out of this battle through the air on the right side of things?
I think the main thing that can give Alabama comfort is Kane Womack talked about it. We've only seen a small volume of Alabama's defense, which means Kane's got stuff he has yet to pull out. He's got exotic looks, exotic pressures, blitzes that he has yet to pull out, and he hasn't had to because the opposition struggled with the basic things. I think against Georgia, we're about to see some twist stunts, some games being played up front, a lot of different look packages pre-snap, post-snap. I think Kane is about to really confuse Carson Beck with a pre-snap look and a post-snap look and getting pressure to Beck before he's able to really want to let go of the football or pressure to prevent him from being accurate with the football. The fact that Kane has mentioned we've gone into matchups with a lot of what we want to do on defense, but we haven't had to use a lot of it. Now we're about to see under the lights what Kane is really working with all the pressure things he's brought from South Alabama.
Couldn't agree more. And you just used some great key words to help us transition to the next piece. You talked about pressure. Talk about under the spotlight. Well, Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan going into this game, they're under the spotlight. Some may say under the heating lamp. Right now, is there a lot of pressure for both Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan to earn that paycheck for being that genius offensively, for having those innovative minds? We haven't seen a whole lot, but then again, we haven't had to show a whole lot. You know, we've run verticals to great success. Thank you, Ryan Williams, for doing what you do. Thank you for Jeremy Bernard for doing what you've been doing. And then to the backs, they're coming alive. We probably have one of the most powerful rushing attacks we've had in quite some time. But things are changing. It's time to start opening things up a little bit. And guys, I got to be honest. At some point, Ryan Williams is going to be bracketed. He's going to be taken out of the equation. So when does someone else step up? Kendrick Law, Jeremy Bernard, Kobe Prentice, someone else, Caleb Odom. What are we thinking, guys? How much pressure is DeBoer and Sheridan under to earn that paycheck against Georgia? Start us out, Stephen, and then we'll go to Petty.
I don't think the pressure is coming from the higher ups, the powers that be above them. I think the wanting to be assured comes from the fan base and we, the consumers of college football and Alabama football. That's what that comes from. The fan base wants to feel like Bama got the right coach, that Greg Byrne made the right decision, right? Because you still have those that feel like, I don't know, Nick Saban ain't on the sideline no more. I still don't feel right. I still need to be reassured for the 100 millionth time that this was the right decision on his part to go with Kalen DeBoer. And I feel like that's what fans want to see. I think fans want to see the reassurance of Nick Sheridan was the right coordinator. And I think if Nick Sheridan goes to this game creating favorable matchups, freeing up Kendrick Law, freeing up Kobe Prentice, freeing up Jeremy Bernard, freeing up this running game, this could be a big matchup for Justice Haynes Last week against Wisconsin, Jam Miller had the hot hand, but Justice Haynes is from Georgia. Played his high school ball at Buford High School in Georgia. His dad was a Georgia legacy. Justice knows how big time this matchup is. So this could be a very huge game for him. But if Nick Sheridan is able to free these guys up here in this play call system, in this playbook, then Alabama fans go, okay, he was the right hire. I feel good. I feel better. On national TV, Bama took out Georgia's defense with Nick Sheridan. And I get it. You got some Bama fans that feel like, well, Steven, we beat Georgia with Tommy Rees. Yes, that happened. Yes, you did. You still have some fans, Steven, we beat Georgia with Bill O'Brien. Yes, you did beat Georgia with Booth O'Brien. I understand that. But neither of those two are in Tuscaloosa now. Now you got Nick Sheridan. This becomes his opportunity. What does he do in this matchup to create? And the same thing with Kane Womack. What does Womack do in this matchup to create where you are affecting Carson Beck and you're stopping the run? It's not really the higher ups bringing this pressure. It's the consumers of Tide football that want to be reassured again, this was the right move.
All right, Patty, if you put a nice little bow tie on it, kind of close it out and give your thoughts. I know in your mind and other fans' minds, we are still waiting to see Jalen Milroe make those intermediate throws, those throws over the middle. We are still waiting to see innovativeness when it comes to Kendrick Law. We're fully expecting a Deebo Samuel type package with him, but maybe all that's being held back. So if you would close this up real nicely, and then we're going to go to our next segment.
I don't think there's as much pressure on the DeBoer side and Sheridan. Now, if it goes just awry and doesn't look good, people are going to grumble because that's just the nature of the Bama fan base. But I almost kind of see this as a free shot, especially in this new era, man. You beat Georgia, and hell, you're looking at SEC championship #1 seed, but you drop this one, you're still in the playoff hunt. And so year one with what Georgia's supposed to be and what their record has been. And look, I know it's Alabama and hell, regardless of what Georgia's done, Alabama's actually been the Achilles heel to Kirby. I don't see it. I see this. I know it's crazy, but I kind of see it as a free shot. And I know that's not in the Bama. I know that especially with what Saban's done for 20 years, there's not such things as free shots in Bama world. But to me, this is when you're in a first year of a coach that's got the talent he's working with, the expectations maybe aren't what they were for Saban every year. Like, okay, well, let's see what we got. So I don't think it's going to be held against him if you don't beat Kirby in year one. I think the pressure may be more in a different direction. So
I like the way that you set that up perfectly. But before I get to that, I want to remind everyone, before you head over to Tuscaloosa next Saturday, Bryant-Denny Stadium, running wild, Alabama versus Georgia, get your title towel. Go to whitwillsports.com today. Get your title towel. Matter of fact, before you do the checkout, don't forget to enter the promo code STANDARD. Get you a nice little discount courtesy of your favorite network, the Bama Standard. Yes, folks, your game day is not complete without having your title towel. All right. Yes. Last thing on the docket. Patty, you spoke about pressure, so I'm going to let you start this discussion out. How much pressure is Kirby Smart under going into this contest? Nick Saban's gone. The old man has retired. He's gone off into the pasture, enjoying life, as we've seen on game day, sharing tomahawk steaks with old boy on the set there, Pat McAfee. But the monkey of Alabama still is on his back and is quite heavy. His record against Alabama has not been that good. As a matter of fact, it has been a mental challenge, a mental block. He is not able to operate at full capacity like he enjoys against other opponents. There's a stigma there. So how does he handle the pressure of, once again, playing Alabama, playing them at home, and do you feel like he may be breathing a little bit easier, or is he still just a little nervous? And then we'll go to Steven after this.
I'm curious. That's what I want to know. Because look, was it Saban? Because Saban can kind of put some pressure on you. That's your former boss. You really want to beat him. You really want to show the world that you can beat your former boss. But take Saban away. There's a lot of teams that have an issue beating Alabama, regardless who the coach is. So I think that is the thing. Look, program-wise, no. Kirby is cemented himself as a statue at the University of Georgia. So he could lose to Alabama every game he plays them from here on out, and he will be considered the greatest coach in Georgia history. With that said, though, man, there is a perception out there of what you just alluded to. He doesn't have a good record against Alabama. Was that a Saban thing? Now that Saban's gone, is the pressure off? Or is it now like, holy hell, if I can't beat them even without Saban, I just can't beat Alabama? And there's a lot of programs that just can't beat Alabama. Mm-hmm. And so I do think there is that pressure of, okay, now that Saban's gone, I better get them, or people are going to question, is this program my beast?
Steven.
I agree with Patty 100% on that. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Georgia fans are looking at Kirby and going, dude, that guy on the other side ain't Nick no more. You should be able to take this guy. This is your time, Kirby. You should be able to walk right on the Saban field and win on Saban field. You should be able to do it, Kirby. You sat under Saban for 9 years, that you took everything from the man. Now they've named this field after him. You should be able to go right on this field with him being in attendance and win this game. If you cannot win this game, Kirby, then Alabama is the biggest thorn in your side. Not Nick Saban, but Alabama football, period, is the biggest thorn in your side. And that is not going to sit well with the Georgia faithful. It's not going to sit well because they're going to feel like Nick is gone. We should be able to own Tuscaloosa with Nick out of there. If we cannot beat him, if we can't beat Bama with Kadyn and DeBoer, Kirby, we have a problem. And that's the pressure that's on Kirby. Can Kirby turn this page? Because if he can't, not only is it the Bama Nation going, you know what, DeBoer? We got the right guy. We got him. We got the right guy. It's Georgia Nation. We still can't beat them?
We can't beat Bama.
And Steven, it's not just on the field. You got to think about the off the field ramifications. What kind of knee-jerk reaction is Georgia looking at if Alabama bests them again in terms of recruiting? Because you're looking at a lot of guys who were flipping and who were thinking Alabama's not quite Alabama, but we still going to keep our eyes on them just to see if they are. And if Alabama is able to take down Georgia, those young men all of a sudden are going to start thinking, you know what? They still Bama, and maybe we should commit back to them or further lock down that commitment. So that's going to be something to watch too. But
there are going to be several. There are going to be several top recruits next week inside Brian Denny.
Oh yeah,
there are going to be several top recruits at this game.
Well, apparently everybody in the country is going to be at the game.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Presidents, recruits, everybody.
Even me, trying to not get my bag checked 100 million times.
Hey, buddy, you better have a big clear bag for this one.
You got to
get ready for that. Get ready for that. The glove test.
Before I ask one last question, I will pose a question that honestly I would like for you to answer on your respective shows. A win right here is more critical for which team? Looking at their schedule ahead, which team do you feel like has the most to lose and the most to gain? Think about that and answer that on your shows this coming week. Folks, if you're watching right now, if you're watching the replay, tune in to their shows to get the answer to that question. All right, rapid fire. Make it really quick. Difference makers in this game for Alabama. It can be on either side of the coin. Who do you feel like needs to step up, needs to stand out, or is going to have that defining moment that puts Alabama in that win column versus Georgia? Stephen.
All right, so defensively, my guy's going to have a defining moment. I gotta go Qua Russaw defensively. There's going to be Qua on defense. Offensively, I'm going to go Justice Haynes. This is his game. He's from Georgia. He knows how big this is. So I'll go Justice on offense.
Petty.
I see LT Overton making one of those epic defensive line. Allen, you go back in the history all the way to against Texas with the strip and of Marcel Darius. I see an LT Overton highlight reel play coming this weekend. And then Milroe. I hate to go that route, but if you're going to win a game of this magnitude, if you're going to make it to New York and be in that Final Four, these are the moments. And it's canned. It is what it is, but this is the history of football. You want to win the biggest games, your quarterback has to make the plays. And this is the moment where Milroe can really cement himself, in that Alabama lore and legacy in a game in Bryant-Denny against, the mighty Georgia Bulldogs, beating them for the first time since COVID in the regular season, it seems like. And, this is going to be Milroe's toughest test, one of his toughest tests to date. So it's got to be Milroe for me.
And then Petty, to echo that point as we wrap up here, keep in mind several NFL scouts will be at this game. A lot of pro teams. Here's a chance for Milroe to elevate that draft stock. People are talking about Carson Beck as a first-round quarterback. Milroe, here's your rebuttal opportunity. You need to be in that conversation also. He can put on for some NFL teams.
That's right.
He can, but then again, don't pressure yourself unnecessarily to be a pocket passer to try and impress NFL scouts. Play to your strengths. Use those strengths to best your opponent. And I agree, Jalen Milroe is definitely one of the key players in this game. But for me, in order for Jalen Milroe and the offense by extension to do what they want to do, it's going to have to come up front from the offensive line. I'm going to go Tyler Booker as well as the rest of those guys by extension. Bama's offense can't work that magic. You won't be able to see the innovativeness unless we have that stout blocking. On the other side of the ball, I got to go with LT Overton. The key to this game is putting Carson Beck on his back, not allowing Georgia to get going offensively, be a complete disruptor, make life a living hell, and then have nightmares for weeks after that. So that's pretty much going to do it for us. Before we head out, I'll remind everybody, like it says down here, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're watching the replay, get in the comment section. Let us know what you think. But before we go, I'm going to let the guys on this panel give a shout out to their socials, but more importantly, the shows that they're a part of, so you can find them after the fact. Go ahead, Petty, then down to Stephen.
You can follow on X at Petty_Daniel, Daniel_Petty, one of them. It's Pettey. There's not many of us out there. You'll find me real quick. But more importantly, check me out on Monday for the opening kick at 7 Central with my boy Gerald Smoke Dixon. We got a huge guest, former Georgia offensive lineman and Denver Bronco offensive lineman, first-round draft pick George Foster will be with us this Monday to break down the big game. George is one heck of a personality. He's all over Twitter. He's been on Fine Bomb. Funny fella. Check us out Monday, 7 Central, the opening kick. And then on Tuesday, I'm also after the flagship show that Justin and them are going to tell you about, so I'll let them do that. But I am at 8 Central on The Final Whistle. Check us out there Tuesday. Again, we'll be talking about God knows what.
That's a great way to put it. Stephen M.
Oh, man. Well, people can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at Coaching M. Smith right there. At Coaching M. Smith, they can find all the articles there. TouchdownAlabama.com. It's TouchdownAlabama.com there on a site there. On Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I have my own show, Touchdown Alabama, on YouTube. In my own words, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 Central. We're talking Bama, taking phone calls, having fun with it. On Tuesdays here with the Bama Standard, the flagship show. We're here every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. with Justin Riley. You got to acknowledge him, the tribal chief there. You got Steve Brown, the comic genius. Marvin Constant, the guy that wants to kill everybody. You got Gerald Smoke Dixon, and you got myself, who I do what I do here. And then on Sundays, and I'm also with Talking Band with JB, JT, and Marshall until Marshall's military career starts. But I'll be with the guys there on Talking Bama on Sundays. But looking forward to this game next week, and next week looking forward to talking to coaches and players to get their feel for this game.
Exciting time. I want to thank everyone for being with us today. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for going back and showing us some love. Again, we didn't mean to interrupt the holy day of college football. We just wanted to give our 2 cents. Remind everybody, Tuesday night, the Bama Standard. Got to tune in, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will get you ready for the Georgia game like no other. And, folks, we are going to have somebody from the enemy camp as a guest next Tuesday night. That's none other than former Georgia star defensive lineman Charles Grant, who was also part of the NFL for many years, played with Roman Harper for the Saints. So you definitely do not want to miss that. But as for us, that's going to do it for us here at the Bama Standard. We will see you next week. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. See y'all next week.
Yes, sir.
That's the bottom line. Why? Because Stone Cold said so.